It usually starts small, a quiet jab disguised as a joke, a change in someone's tone, a look that lingers too long, a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes, like there's something darker hidden underneath. And most people? They brush it off, tell themselves it's not a big deal, not worth the trouble, but then it happens again. Louder this time, sharper, more public, and by the time they feel like standing up for themselves, it's already too late. Here's the truth. Disrespect ignored is disrespect accepted. Machiavelli understood that better than most. In a world that runs on power, reputation, and control, he knew something vital. Respect isn't earned, it's enforced. And when someone crosses that line with you, what you do next tells the entire room how to treat you from that moment forward. Because in the beginning, disrespect isn't even personal. It's a test, a boundary check. And if you don't check it back, you're not just seen as weak, you're seen as safe to disrespect again. So when it happens, not later, not when it feels easier, but right then you need to respond. Not with anger, not with an outburst, but with silence. Cold, strategic, calculated silence. Here's the first Machiavellian law of handling disrespect. The person who reacts emotionally loses status, but the one who steps back, who stays calm and unreadable, that person becomes a mystery, and mystery breeds fear. Now don't confuse silence with weakness. This isn't about ignoring the insult. It's about cutting the energy flow completely. You don't laugh, you don't brush it off, you don't explain why it bothered you, you just go still. You make them feel your absence. In the way you look at them, in the shift of your tone, in your refusal to keep their game going. It's a pause they didn't expect, a void they didn't plan for, because disrespect feeds off reactions, off your laughter, your defensiveness, your need to smooth things over. But when you meet it with a dead calm, ice-cold stare, it exposes itself for what it really is, a weak, desperate move for control. That's why Machiavelli never struck first. He observed. He let his enemies feel safe, let them reveal themselves. And when he did respond, it wasn't with apology, it was with precision. That's your second move. You don't match disrespect with insult, you don't attack. You mirror, with calm questions that expose rather than escalate. Like, did you mean that how it sounded? Want to say that again, just so I'm clear? That came off personal. Want to clarify that before I respond? Each one is a scalpel, clean, sharp, controlled. You're not asking because you're confused. You're giving them a chance to either backpedal or double down to show their cards. And most won't. Because the truth is, the majority of people who throw disrespect your way aren't bold. They're calculating. They take shots when they think they can get away with it, when they believe you won't push back. And that's why your stillness unnerves them. Because when you don't react the way they expect, when they see you watching, waiting, measuring, their confidence starts to shrink. That's the goal, not revenge, not getting the last word. Doubt. You want to introduce hesitation into their process, because when someone has to pause and think twice before speaking to you, you've already changed the dynamic. But don't stop there, because here's where most people slip. They handle the first moment well, but later, they go soft. They return to normal. They act like it never happened. Big mistake. You don't go back to normal. You redefine the relationship. This is the third step. Reframe everything immediately. The way you speak to them now? Colder, more formal, less available. You don't join their conversations like you used to. You don't accept their invitations right away. You don't explain why things are different. You just let them feel it. Because that shift, that uncomfortable silence around you now, that's not awkwardness, that's education. You're teaching the room something important. I don't tolerate that. And when it's public, even better. Because then you're not just protecting yourself. You're setting the tone for everyone else. And people watch closely in moments like that. They notice who you ignore, who you go cold on, who no longer gets your warmth, and then suddenly your name carries a different weight. They talk about you differently now. They don't joke the same way. They think before they speak. You didn't ask for that shift, but you commanded it. Because the truth is, the person who can't be disrespected isn't always the loudest. They're the most disciplined, the ones who know exactly what to do the moment someone crosses the line. Not with rage, not with drama, but with cold precision. This is how you shut things down before they ever really begin. Not by explaining, not by asking for respect, but by showing, with presence, silence, and strategic distance, that you're someone who doesn't play social games. You play the power game. And the power game has different rules. Now here's where it starts to get deeper and way more powerful. Because once you've shut it down once, handled it with clarity and calm, most people assume the storm has passed. But the truth is, the real test starts after the first disrespect. That's when they come back, not with the same move, but with something sneakier. A joke with a fake smile, a passive comment dressed as a compliment, a forgot to include you moment that they pretend was an oversight. They're not just testing you again. They're checking to see if you really meant it. And that's when you make your next move. Disproportionate consequence. Now hold on. This doesn't mean going nuclear. It means doing something smarter, more surgical. Because here's something Machiavelli understood that most people are too polite to admit. If the punishment is equal to the offense, it's forgettable. But if it's greater, it's unforgettable. This isn't about fairness, it's about effectiveness. So when they cross that line again, when they test if the door is still open, you don't react emotionally. You don't raise your voice. You go colder, not louder. Let's say they try to pull you back in with charm, or a group joke, or a casual question. You don't ignore them awkwardly. You respond, but with precision. They ask you something in front of others? You answer with one word. You hold eye contact. Then you shift your attention to someone else. They try to reclaim your warmth. You stay polite, but distant. Not cold enough to create drama, just enough that everyone can feel the gap. That gap? That's not rudeness. That's strategy. You're showing them, and everyone watching, that access to your presence is not free. It's earned, and once it's violated, it's not easily restored. This is where people usually fail. They want to be liked. They want to be the bigger person. They want to smooth it over and pretend everything's fine. But here's the harsh truth. Being liked is cheap. Being respected is expensive. And what earns that respect isn't forgiveness. It's consequence. Delivered not with anger, but with silence. With a shift in your posture, your tone, your availability. That's what people remember. That's what reshapes the dynamic. And here's something most people forget. Everyone's watching, not just the one who disrespected you, but the entire room. They saw what happened. They saw your first move, and now they're watching to see what comes next. This is your opportunity to recast your image, to evolve from just someone who handled it well into someone who's now seen as untouchable. Because image, according to Machiavelli, is more powerful than truth. Let that sink in. Your image, how people perceive you, is what controls their behavior, their tone, even their decisions around you. So what do you want your image to be? He doesn't play around. She's sharp. Don't mess with her. You only get one chance with them. Once people start talking like that, the whole social current starts flowing in your favor. They speak more carefully, they act more deliberately, they stop testing you because they know you don't need to say you won. You already did. But let's go even further. What happens when the person trying to disrespect you doesn't stop? What if they're not just testing you? What if they're someone who thrives on disruption? The ones who don't care about social approval, who laugh off being called out, who just want to provoke? That's when you activate the third level of control. You turn their disrespect against them, not by escalating emotionally, not by fighting fire with fire. You escalate socially. You make their behavior visible, uncomfortable, hard to ignore. Let's say they make a joke again, trying to needle you in public. You don't attack them. You don't defend yourself. You just smile slightly and say, "Interesting joke. Do you use that one at work too?" Or, "I'm surprised you said that out loud." Or, "If you talk to your friends like that, I'd hate to hear how you speak to strangers. You're not insulting them, you're spotlighting them. You're making them wear their own behavior in public. And suddenly, the laugh dies out. People glance at each other. The energy shifts. Because now the room isn't watching you. It's watching them. And nothing shrinks a disrespectful person faster than exposure. Because most of the time, these people aren't confident. They're insecure. Loud but hollow. Bold but only when they think no one will call them out. So when you reflect their own behavior back at them, calmly, precisely, you do something they didn't expect. You make them own it. That's your shield. Because people don't mess with what they can't read. This is why Machiavelli warned against being too consistent, too predictable, too easy to figure out. Because once someone understands your reactions, they can manipulate them. But when your silence doesn't mean surrender, it means preparation. When you're calm doesn't mean, and once that happens, you don't need to win anymore. They've already lost, not by force, but by the fact that everyone just saw through them. That's Machiavellian retaliation. Not loud, not messy, but lethal in how quiet and surgical it is. And the best part? You're still calm. You're still poised. You're not the one shaking. They are. Because you didn't take the bait. You didn't lash out. You just turned the spotlight on and stepped out of the way. That's how you gain real control. You don't fight for respect. You become the person people respect automatically. Because now they know. You don't explain. You don't argue. You don't tolerate. You end it. Quietly, surgically, completely. Now here's where everything flips. Because disrespect, it never survives on boldness. It survives on safety. Not your safety, theirs. People cross lines when they think there's no consequence. When they think you'll shrug or laugh it off or stay quiet. That's the real fuel behind most disrespect. The assumption that you won't do anything. But Machiavelli, he saw it differently. He understood that real power doesn't come from striking often. It comes from creating the possibility that you could strike at any moment without warning. And that when you do, it won't be something they can handle. That's the next level. You become a threat without ever being threatening. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to glare or flex or dominate. You just have to become unpredictable. When someone disrespects you after the boundary's already been made clear, your job isn't to fix them or educate them or get them to like you again. Your job is to become uncertain in their mind. They should wonder, did I go too far? Why didn't they react this time? What are they thinking right now? Why do I feel uneasy around them? That uncertainty and comfort, it means containment. When you can respond once with cold, surgical clarity and then retreat behind unreadable stillness again, you become an anomaly, and anomalies change rooms. They make people hesitate. They alter the way others speak. They change the emotional temperature just by entering. That's not fear, that's power. And here's the psychological twist most people never realize. Respect doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being felt. When you walk into a room and everything shifts, when voices lower, people straighten up, tones get more careful, that's not popularity. That's presence. And presence is built through contrast. You're not always cold, but when you are, it's cutting. You're not always distant, but when you distance, it hurts. You're not chasing anyone. But the second they cross a line, they're on the outside. And it stings. Why? Because your attention now feels earned. Your energy feels selective. And your silence? It speaks louder than any comeback ever could. This is the final transformation. You stop reacting to disrespect like it's personal. You start treating it as data. Most people hear an insult and get hurt. But you hear it and think, there's the weakness in them. Because disrespect almost always says more about the one giving it than the one receiving it. It's insecurity. It's fear. It's desperation for control. It's a projection of their chaos onto your stability. So you don't flinch. You don't argue. You simply ask yourself the real questions. Do they still get access to me? Do I need to isolate this person publicly or quietly? Do I use them as an example? or let them fade on their own, you're not playing emotional chess anymore. You're orchestrating perception, and that's where true control lies. Because as Machiavelli taught, the ultimate power move isn't about domination. It's when your absence carries the same weight as your presence. That's the victory, not applause, not praise. But knowing that even when you're not there, your boundary still holds. Because the people who don't get disrespected, they're not the loudest, they're not the most feared, they're the ones who made disrespect too expensive. And not through revenge, not through violence, but through disciplined silence, unshakable boundaries, and total emotional independence. You don't need to play the social game like they do. You play the power game. And in that game, everything changes. People pause before interrupting you. They rephrase before they speak to you. They introduce you to others with new language. Sharp. No nonsense. Don't mess with them. You didn't ask for that reputation. You built it. But here's the final move, the one that defines legacy. What do you do when someone disrespects you and then realizes they made a mistake? Because now they're backpedaling, they're apologizing, they're trying to reconnect, trying to laugh with you again. This moment right here, this is where you win or give it all away. You don't punish them. You don't forgive them. You do something more powerful than both. You stay the same. No smile, no bitterness, no revenge, just still. You let them feel the new reality, where they no longer get the same version of you, where your energy no longer shifts to meet theirs, where you don't adjust, you don't explain, you don't seek closure. They are no longer a variable in your life. They're just there, like background noise in a room you no longer pay attention to. And that is what disturbs them the most, because now they see it clearly. You were never playing the game they thought you were. You never needed their validation. You were never trying to win them over. You were simply allowing them near you. And now, that access is gone. That's how you finish the game. Not with force, but with finality. You don't chase, you don't argue, you don't come back around. You disappear and let the silence echo behind you. And in that silence, your name becomes something else entirely. Not a person they can joke about, not someone they can mess with, but a standard. The one who enforces respect without needing to ask for it. The one who turns disrespect into consequence. The one who never argues because they don't get touched. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said, men must be either respected or eliminated. In today's world, that means they either understand your value or they no longer get access to it. That's your legacy. That's your power. And that's why they'll never make the mistake of crossing you again. Because once they do, they learn something unforgettable. You only get one chance.